bing, 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 and you go, oh, that's boring.
Good evening and welcome. This is Revved Up and Relived on the Spirit of Motorsport TV, and I am Hailey Coxon. Thank you for joining us in the studio. Remember, this is an interactive experience, so feel free to fire your comments our way, send us any questions that you might have, and remember also you can join us in the studio. So for future reference, if you want to join in the chat, feel free to send us a little message and we'll get you set up. It's really simple, really quick, and great fun as well. So tonight's episode, please do share. We're here for the next hour. If you know anyone that might enjoy it, we're here talking about Hedzup Racing. Please add their name and share it with them and bring them into the studio and get them to enjoy this program. 1 hour of entertainment is coming your way. So tonight it is Hedzup Racing's Pert that will be joining us in the studio with some of his young lads that have benefited from his fantastic youth project up there in sunny Scotland. Now, this incredible charity has been giving youth the opportunity to develop and try new experiences through the running of a motorcycle race team. Now, this project and what they've been achieving over the last few years since they opened in 2009, I believe. Maybe I've got that wrong, but Ian, I'm sure, will correct me. Some of the projects they've been involved in and some of the boys that they've sent racing. It's just incredible stories along the way that they've been collecting and lives that they've been impacting. So without further ado, I'd love to invite the great Pert into the studio. Ian, welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
Great, thank you. Absolutely brilliant. So, Ian, we have to touch on that. Lucky enough, we got to meet, didn't we, at Oliver's Mount a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
And this is how it all started.
Yeah, just a little while ago.
It was a little while ago. So you've been following our page for a while, and we knew we were going to be at Oliver's Mount together. So we got chatting. You gave me a copy of one of your incredible books, which we're going to talk about just in a little while. But before we do, I want to talk about Hedzup Racing, and I want to talk about how you became involved in it and why you became involved in it as well.
Okay.
So tell me, was I right in it started in 2009? Is that year right?
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Round about then, yeah.
Huh?
It started it was meant to be a one-off. I was in Mountain Rescue at the time, and I'd had an idea I got approached by a school to build a motorbike with a group of kids. And because they knew my background, because at that time I'd been retired from racing for a while, and they asked me if I'd build a bike with a group of kids, and I said, well, yeah, what are they allowed to do with it? And well, nothing. So, well, we couldn't really take them to a cookery and make a cake and then say, by the way, you're not getting to eat it. So decided to come up with little plans. We'd say we'd try and build a race bike. My mate at the time had just started, well, not just started, he was very successful at the time. Bruce Burney, multiple Scottish champion. When he started racing, was my last season before I retired the first time. And he always said he would help me if I wanted to get back to it. So I got in touch with him and said, I wanted a bike. We were going to try and build a bike with a group of kids. And he said, yeah, he would give me a bike. But unfortunately, the program, it never happened. The school weren't interested, so it didn't happen. But a few months later, I was waiting on the side of a mountain to get picked up by a helicopter with a policeman who was a biker. And we're just speaking about loads of stuff, working with kids, because he was a community cop, and said I'd had this idea to build a bike with a group of kids, but it didn't happen. So he asked for more information. I said, well, we're going to build a race bike. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And that was it. And then 6 months later, he was on the phone and said, do you remember your idea with a motorbike? I've got a group of kids and I've got a budget to do it, so let's do it. So what was meant to be a one-off, we built a bike that we got from Bruce Burney and turned up at Knockhill, and I had to get my license back because I hadn't been racing for a long time. And we ended up going to East Fortune, entered a race at East Fortune. And that was how it all started. It was meant to be a one-off. I told my partner that it was going to be, that she didn't actually know we were doing it because I didn't think there was any point in telling her I was racing again. And then we decided we would do it a second time. So at that time, Callum had been born. He was, how old Callum would have been at that time? 9 years old. So I wanted to take him and my daughter Neve to the racing if I was going to race again, because they had pictures on the wall from me racing. I didn't really want to be at their 18th birthday and saying, "Oh yeah, well I did race, but I just didn't tell anybody." So told Rachel that I was racing again, and that was really it. We started then, and we've been going ever since. So
and is Rachel into racing?
Sorry?
Is your partner into racing? Because I know your daughter Neve isn't she? Is your partner into it? She's
no,
actively
not at all.
into it. Oh, okay.
No, at all. Callum is. Callum,
yeah.
my oldest son, he races, and he's doing really well just now. So that's
fantastic.
good.
Fantastic. Brilliant. So we're just checking out some of these great pictures here, Ian. Such a brilliant community. Is that Callum there?
No, that was a guy called Mark Ogg. He was in one of the first groups. He was in the first group that ever went to Isle of Man with us. Mark's now working on the oil rigs. He's a lorry HGV mechanic, and he's done really well for himself.
Wow.
But yeah, he started out with us all those years ago.
And is this you?
Yeah, that's me on our GSXR at Jerby doing the endurance race a couple of years back. We always do the endurance race at Jerby on the Isle of Man for the end of season. And we usually put in a boys team and a girls team. We had the only woman ever to win around the TT course, Caroline Sells, is a friend of ours, and she came out of retirement and joined our girls team with Ali Foster and Ashley Robson a couple of years back on our R6, I think it was. And it was great because I think she thought we were joking. It was me and Ali Foster had said to her, come out of retirement. And I think she thought we were joking. And she said, if you get me a set of leathers, I'll do it. So 2 days later, Ali dropped a set of leathers on her doorstep, and she realised she had to go and get a race licence. And she'd just had twins not long before. It was brilliant to have somebody like that. And those that were involved in the team at the time, it was ace for them to meet a girl who'd not only been there and done it, but beat everybody and was really good. So, yeah. We've been very lucky with the people that have been involved, and people have got involved and got behind us and helped us.
Yeah, you shared an incredible story how it was Ali Foster, wasn't it? That he donated some parts for the bikes. Has he done that more than once? Ali
and our partner Steve donated an SV650 in bits, and I'd gone over to the Isle of Man to pick it up, and in my little Peugeot 207 diesel estate thing. All the bits got piled in the back of the car. It was scraping the ground coming off the ferry. It was so heavy. Got it back, and there's I think I let you see one of the pictures where Finlay, who you're going to meet in a bit, he was as a little 11 or 12-year-old in the workshop working on that bike, never realising that 4 or 5 years' time he would actually be riding it. So he rode that bike for us for 2 or 3 years, and that was great. And that was Ali and Steve gave us that, which was absolutely brilliant.
Wow. So what got you into racing, Ian? How did you find your way onto the bike?
I started racing in 1991. I'd had a few bikes, quite a few bikes on the road. Last one I had on the road was a GSXR 750, which I loved. Bought it as a write-off because a friend of mine's ran a bike shop that dealt in crash damaged bikes. So me and most of my mates, that was how we got our bikes. We'd buy them crash damaged and do them up. And I had a GSXR 750 that I'd done up. It took me 6 months to build. And within a week of putting on the road, I'd written it off again by being stupid. And then spent another few months rebuilding it, put it back on the road. And it was my brother-in-law. He was a TT racer. And he stopped me and says, like, if you keep going the way you're going, you're not going to be going about for very much longer. So I thought about it and thought, I'd really want to try racing and get it. So I did, and it was the best thing I've ever done. And it's been part of what I've done since 1990, 91. So, yeah.
It's a chosen lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Passion. Love it. So some of the stories you must have from over the years being involved with Hedzup Racing, there's another book in it there, surely, isn't it, Ian?
Yeah, well, I've written a book about the trip to Romania that me and Jim Hunter and Ronnie Russell did. I think we're going to speak about that in a bit. But and I'm in the middle of writing another book about the second trip we did to Syria. But yeah, I dare say there's a book there in just the stories from the racing and all the stuff that happened, because it's always been interesting, and we've been really lucky. And there was always a big group of, even when I started racing in 91, there was a big group of us. I live in Angus in Scotland, and there's a few different towns. Arbroath and Forfar was the main ones, and they all had their bikers and stuff. And there's quite a few of us ended up racing, so it was good. You would go to the racing, there'd be half a dozen people that were mates anyway that were racing against each other, and it was just a brilliant way of doing things. We had a great big caravan. We bought a caravan. It was 28 foot long, 1978 Thompson caravan. It weighed an absolute ton, and we would tow that to the racing. And a couple of the Forfar lads would get a van, and they would get my bike there. So I would have the accommodation, they would get the bike there, and it was just brilliant. It was a bit different than them. There was I remember being racing at Crail, and they brought in the breathalyzer. They didn't have a breathalyzer before then, so it was party central, and we were all the riders were in the pub closest to the circuit on the Saturday night, because there was only racing on the Sunday at that time here. And then the officials came in and said, right, there's going to be a breathalyzer tomorrow. MD fails breathalyzer, you're not racing. And where everybody's just shocked looks, are like, oh, right. And then somebody was clever enough to stand up and go, well, tell you, that's fair enough, but all the officials will need breathalyzed as well. So then all of a sudden the official said, right, okay, at the next race meeting, there's going to be a breathalyzer. And MD failing at the next meeting, so I had to forget about it for that one, because nobody would have passed it, I don't think. But it was a big community, and it still is a big community, but it was just slightly different then.
What a community you're building there with Hedzup Racing, hey, for these young boys, and giving them a space to express themselves in another way. And it's just a completely different way of socializing as well, isn't it? A whole other way of another level for them.
Yeah, it gives them someplace to be. And on a Friday night, Friday night's open to anybody that wants to come along, and it doesn't really matter if they're not going to pick up the tools, as long as they're there, they're safe, they're not wandering the streets, and they can have a cuppa. There's a microwave, there's a kettle. We used to do it on a Friday night outside one of the schools, and we had a lorry that Russ Henley, who you met at Scarborough, Russ and his mate Kev Warren bought us a lorry a few years ago, and it was all kitted out. We could sleep 5 or 6 people in it, had a kitchen, everything. So we would, on a Friday, that would be parked at the school, and then I'd be sitting in the lorry having my tea for the group before the group would arrive at night. But then everybody started arriving early, and everybody just bringing pies and chips, and everybody would end up sitting, and it was just full of people sitting having their tea before, and then we'd just work on bikes all night, and it was great. And that's how it really started. It started as a small thing, and now it's become my main thing. It's what I do all the time is Heads Up, whether it's the motorbikes or whether it's the outdoor centre we're trying to build and things like that. But it's all based around kids and what's good for kids, and giving kids new experiences, whether that experience is going to the Isle of Man or Ireland or East Fortune or Knockhill. It's all different experiences. Some of these kids that we've taken away have never left their hometown, far less anything else. So when you all of a sudden chuck them on a ferry at the Isle of Man and say it's like being abroad. So yeah.
Brilliant. We've got a comment here, Ian, from Gail Core saying great work by Ian and all the gang. It's great seeing them all over when they can make it to the Irish roads. A legend. Woo! You got a fan there, I think, Ian.
Gail's brilliant. I mean, we've been so lucky when we go over to Ireland. We're really well received over in Ireland. We know a lot of people there, and everybody's just so friendly, and they're so good with the boys. And they get stuck in. When we went to Tandragee a couple of years back, we had one of the officials there came up, and we had half a dozen of us were there. Callum was there, several other folk were there, and Owen, one of the lads in the team, was standing there, and the official came up and said, "Is Owen busy?" So, well, no, why? He says, "Well, we could do a hand." So Owen ended up working down in the paddock for the officials, and ended up standing speaking to Guy Martin and telling Guy Martin what he was doing, and then Guy Martin ended up signing his honours jacket and everything like that. Which people, it's just brilliant for these kids, because you're going to these races and you're there with the best in the world at our sport. And that's brilliant, because that's the equivalent of turning up to a car meeting and having Michael Schumacher and people like that. And that's the reality of it. These guys are mixing with the best in the world at what we do, which is awesome. So to be able to share a track with these guys and have these guys who are so ordinary and so easygoing, just coming up and speaking to our lads, it's so good for them.
Brilliant. All right. Well, shall we speak to some of the boys then that have been through the program, part of the race, and part of the team? So we've got first joining us in the studio, we've got Finley Milne. Am I saying his last name right? I am, aren't I? Finley, if you'd like to join us in the studio, welcome, Finn. Hello. How you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Great. It's lovely to have you with us and shine a light on your incredible team. So tell me a little bit about when you got involved with Hedzup Racing.
I got into Hedzup Racing when I was early high school, so maybe first year, second year sort of age, but young age, and just seen it through like Ian doing his promotional bits, like things like the bike show. But there was a couple shows he done up here, up in Angus. That I ended up seeing it at. Mum was like, oh, you should go, because I had an interest in bikes from when I raced mini motos when I was young, but I was a bit nervous in that, and that was sort of the kid I was back then. I just started sort of going through high school, all the nerves growing up and that, and then joined the team, and I was nervous about joining the team, but it's turned me into the person I am today, and I'm confident I could go. I'm the kind of person nowadays that you put me at the bike show and I'll stand and speak to everyone there, no nerves at all, offering them cups of tea, or handing out flyers, walking around smiling, and just, you know what I mean, showing off the team and showing that we're a good group of lads doing a good thing as well. Like, although I'm seen to be now one of the older people in Hedzup, I'm sort of there. Like, I see myself as trying to mentor some of the lads coming through, because I was their age once. I was, you know what I mean? I've come from where they are. I'm now, and I've got myself an apprenticeship and I'm working away. So I'm now sort of like, I like help out with the team, and I'm one of the members still, but I like to help us like mentor the kids through and show, like, sort of push them in the right way, not with just mechanical stuff, but just in the right way, like always being like the good work at school, and, you know what I mean, just keep being good lads and just keep them in the right track.
Brilliant, Finn. Absolutely brilliant. So you're kind of like, you're passing the baton, really, aren't you? You're passing down the knowledge, which is so important.
Well, I think it's good. I find that a lot easier to learn. Like, I'm dyslexic, so school was never like, I've done well at school and tried really hard, but school was never like the main thing for me. But I think you can learn. A lot of people learn a lot from watching and learning and seeing someone like they've done that way. So I can do it that way, but I can also do it this way, and it builds up their, like, you know what I mean, their understanding and just problem solving.
Yeah, fab. And so you've got you're training an apprentice now, is that right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So you're trained to be a mechanic, or
I'm trained to be a heavy vehicle mechanic.
Heavy vehicle mechanic. Fantastic. So we got some pictures here for you. So tell us a bit about when this was, Finn.
That would have been the winter after I started Hedzup. I started Hedzup maybe 3 or 4 months before that, and then that's the SV that I've rode the last 2 years. I've taken it. Well, basically, I was there from the start of when it started out as a frame without even bearings in the headstock, and I've now taken it to 2 fourth places, and like I've done countless races over the last 2 years on it. I've raced it, and my last race on it was in Ireland at the Sunflower, which is probably the biggest meeting I've ever been a part of anyway. And I raced against Jeremy McWilliams. There's nowhere near him, but it's quite cool to say that, yeah, I was on track with the next MotoGP rider and 250 rider, and just cool to have. And then another person on track was Ian Locker, and then a couple of the boys, Eugene McGlinchey was on track with me at the same time as well. And it's just a bit surreal seeing your name on the same timesheet as them. Nowhere near them, but your name's there with them, isn't it? So
brilliant. So what would be your fondest memory then? So you've got quite a few great ones there. What would be your would you have a favorite one out of all of them?
It's not favorite. Every meeting I done on that SV, I could pick 10 moments that are my favorite out of the weekend. Like, there's no real defining moment for me. I think my biggest achievement that I was probably the happiest with was a qualifying third on it. I was really chuffed with qualifying third. I binned it in the first race, second corner, but really chuffed to get for my first proper front row start.
You're laughing there, Ian.
Yeah, he's laughing because it's his bike.
Oh, look at that. It's a stunning shot, that. Wow.
That's a cracking picture.
Isn't it?
Brilliant. I can't remember the name of the photographer. I'll give them the credit, but it's a cracking picture. Finley will maybe know who the photographer was.
You can see on there. John Wilson, maybe?
Better eyes than me.
I think Willow, I couldn't tell you. I honestly couldn't. I think it might be Jennifer's daughter.
Oh,
It's
Jen
Jennifer's.
Wilkie. Jen Wilkie, yeah. Jen Wilkie. Great. Stunning shot. Absolutely stunning. Look at the determination in those eyes, Finn. Look at that.
That bike,
Brilliant.
every time you ride that bike, it's not. We haven't had it the fastest. It's now a tuned engine. I've been running it sort of like not. It's not a mini twin, but it wasn't. It was only making about 80 brake horsepower. But and then every time I ride it, I was riding it. It isn't the fastest bike, so I've got to make it go fast. So you got to be determined, or I was going to be poddling around on it.
So what are your hopes, Finn, moving forwards? Obviously, you're training now. You're doing your apprenticeship. But with regards to racing, what are your hopes for the future?
My hopes from a racing are just to keep a big smile on my face. I never really I know I can do it. I can do good results and everything, but I always just go like to have a smile on my face. I see my race weekends as my breakaway. Like it's my thing away from work. So it's like I like going. I love competing, and that's what I really like doing. But my goals are just every weekend walk away with a smile on my face, walk away knowing that I pushed my hardest, tried well, had a really good safe race weekend, and had some really good racing, but just also be there with the boys and just happy. Like there's a lot more to the racing that people don't see. That like there's the racing aspect that we all, like me and Callum and Ian, all have to focus on, but as soon as your like racing stopped, I mean, as soon as the last race of the day is done on the Saturday, everyone's walking about the paddock. You never go more than 100 meters without speaking to someone. It's like there's two sides to the racing. There's the real technical side where you've got your racing, but there's also the social side that I love to it, where you go and it's like you're just a big group of mates at this one big circuit, and it's like I just go to have fun, good racing, and smile on my face. I think I try and achieve that every weekend.
Excellent, Finn. Brilliant. Great. Well, look forward to seeing what you do in the future. And I'm going to invite John now. So we got John Warden into the studio with us. You can join in the conversation. So, John, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Great. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, John, tell us a bit about when you got involved with Hedzup Racing.
I got involved with Hedzup. Well, it started off, Ian did an outdoor group with my school. I must have been about second year at the time, so this was about September, October. It kind of started in 2017. And then I think it was somewhere mid through November of that year, we were taken through to the workshop as part of our group. And I've always had a love for bikes or anything that's got an engine, really. And it kind of, when I seen there was the opportunity, I really wanted to do it. So it came to about February time of 2018 is when I first came along to Hedzup. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever looked back on it, because I've just loved every second of being part of the team, because it's really, really boosted my confidence, and it's given me so much experience I don't think I'd really have without doing stuff with Hedzup.
Ian, I mean, these stories, it's just fantastic, isn't it? The positive impact that this is. We need a Hedzup Racing in all of our cities, all over the place, don't we? It's incredible.
It's something that's been spoken about a few times. We were going to try and start up in the Isle of Man, and I was going to help start up. G4S were going to help make it happen and things like that. Got a good friend there, Lloyd Mister, who's a really good friend of mine's over in the Isle of Man. He thought it'd be a fantastic thing to get going for the kids over there as well. But you're right, it's the sort of project that could go anywhere, and it's a benefit to kids everywhere. And if it gives them a reason not to be wandering the streets, and it gives them a wee bit of a different aspect of life, and just they get to go racing and enjoy that. You can see how these boys enjoy it. So all lads and lasses as well, because don't forget we've got plenty of girls come as well.
Brilliant. This is a great shot as well. This is you, John, right? Is that you in the picture?
Yeah, that's me squatting down in front of Callum's bike. Yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So what's the best thing about the charity for you then, John? Because you've obviously got so much from it over the years, the last couple of years that you've been involved with it. What's been the biggest takeaway for you?
Biggest takeaway for it from me, to be honest, there's so many I could pick, but if anything, it's been the team working skills that I've picked up from it, because I used to not be able to work very well on the team, but as soon as I came part of Hedzup, it really, really started building up my team skills, and it's kind of boosted my confidence as well, because now I feel really confident when I come into problems that, I might not necessarily know the outcome of, but I know exactly, how to tackle it. And yeah, so it's definitely put a whole lot of effort to get there at first, but then, it really pays off being part of Hedzup.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thanks, John. I really appreciate you joining us in the studio. We're going to invite Liam now. So we're going to bring Liam into the chat. Liam Mackay. Am I saying that right with my terrible Scottish accent? Liam, welcome.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, great. Brilliant. So, Liam, thanks again for joining in the chat. So it's good to see the boys here. Have you seen much of each other recently because of everything that's been going on?
Kind of. We've seen each other every now and then, heading up to the centre and that, and doing a bit of work up the centre. But other than that, we've not been able to get to the Friday nights because of COVID. But once that's blown over, we're able to get in.
So tell us a bit about this centre then, Liam. You've been helping out building it. You've been looking in.
I've been up a couple of times, and I was seeing Ian doing the digger work with his friend and getting the ground sorted out and getting the new drainage put in for getting people up there and that. We're just fixing it up and getting it ready so we can get groups up. Instead of just going to the workshop in Forfar, we get groups up there and do other things.
So it's a bigger location for you.
Yeah.
Invite more up there. Fantastic. So when did you get involved, Liam?
I got involved about a year and a half ago. I've not been involved as much as they have. I first heard about it when Ian had a spot in the Brecon pageant, and I didn't really think much of it. And then I was friends with his daughter in high school, and I spoke to her about it. And she told me I'd go along because she knew I liked motorbikes and stuff. So I went along for the first week, and I really enjoyed myself. The first week we were fixing a Baltaco trials bike, trying to build that up, but we couldn't find the parts, so we couldn't finish it. And yeah, I've been over quite a few Fridays and that. It's not just about fixing the bikes. When you go there, it's more of like a family. Like you go there, you have a laugh, you just get away from everything at home life. Because sometimes home life can be a bit stressful, and once you get there, it's just so different and so calming. It's just good to get along.
Good. Your own little community, right?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So are you going to go racing, Liam? Is that what you'd like to do, or are you simply there for the social aspect and the community and to support everybody else that goes racing?
Well, I've thought about doing racing, but that's a big dream. I'm more into the social aspect and just getting along and speaking to everyone. Because I like fixing the bikes, but I don't think I'd be brave enough to race a bike.
You can cheer everyone on and support them all that do go racing, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that like Finn is training to be a mechanic, so he's got an apprenticeship? Is that something that you want to go down the route? Does it give you a taste for that, or?
Yeah, well, just now I've got a job working with my dad doing landscaping and that, and I do enjoy that, but I think I would probably go down the mechanic route because I really, really enjoy fixing the bikes. It's just I feel it's more of a thrill from getting the bike built than it is doing someone's garden.
Yeah. I'd agree with you there, Liam. Brilliant. Fab. All right, so Liam, thank you so much. We're going to bring Mr. Callum Pert into the studio with you, Ian, as well. So your son as well, joining in with the chat. Welcome, Callum. You boys all with your branded tops on, looking fantastic. How are you, Callum?
Not bad, sir.
Yeah, great, thank you. Great. So I was lucky enough to meet you with your dad as well, right? So you were at Oliver's Mount too?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and you've done a little bit of racing since I last saw you.
Yeah, I had a race at Knock Hill on birthday. Went pretty well. Managed to get second and 2/3.
Happy birthday to you.
It's good. Thank you. It was 19.
Fantastic. So it was, your dad's been involved with the charity for quite some time, and it's very much part of his life. So it was obvious that you were going to move into it in some way or another? Was it? Look at that picture.
Yeah,
there. When was this, Callum?
That's not me.
Oh, it isn't you. I thought that was
No,
you.
that's not me. That's me. There you go.
There you go.
There you go. That's me.
Look at those leathers as well. Nice bike.
No, I missed the question.
So when was this, Callum?
Last year.
Last year.
Well, that could have been last year.
Yeah.
Or the year before.
Stunning. So did
chances
the
to do
boys
last.
help you build that?
Yeah, they did. John and all that helped build it. And well, the first place, we actually got that bike because we couldn't get a different bike. I was meant to get a 400 for doing the endurance race 3 years ago, but I was racing a GS 500 at the time, which is just a worse version of that. And well, we went over to do the endurance race on a 400, but the 400 was going to be too expensive to build. So instead of building the 400, he had a CV 500 that was sitting in the garage as well that he gave us for £500 or something. And yeah, we just took that, built it, and I've been racing it ever since. It's been great.
It looks stunning. How does that bike feel to race?
It's really light. I didn't notice how fun it was in the corners until I'd been on a 600 more heavy and a bigger bike. But yeah, it's awesome. It's really good fun.
And who decides on the livery and what colour you're going to have it, all of that stuff? Is that down to you how it's going to be? Good, love it.
Team choice. The whole team decides on the colours and that because everyone's going to be wearing them at some point.
Great. Good. So what are your hopes for the future, Callum? So you've done a bit of racing now. First of all, before we do go to that, Ian, was it Callum's choice to get into the racing or was he kind of pushed into it?
It was Callum's choice.
Mum wouldn't let me be pushed into it. It definitely had to be my own choice. Mum would not let that happen.
Very good. And Neve's into it too, your sister. So you go out riding together?
Yeah, she just got her CBT the other weekend actually.
Brilliant.
But she's lucky with me because I blew my 125 up. So I don't get a bike on the road anymore.
So Ian, what an incredible group of boys you've got here. Absolutely brilliant. Just a snippet of the lives that the team has impacted. It's incredible. So what are the hopes for the future then? You've got this centre, right? When's the centre going to be open, do you think?
The centre we're developing all the time. So it's an outdoor centre.
You're half on the screen.
I know I'm half on the screen. I'm not. Oh, there we go. It's an outdoor centre up in the hills beside where we live, and it was an old army cadet camp, and it was going to get knocked out, and we persuaded the landowner to let us take it on and try and do something with it. So the plan is we'll be allowed to use trials bikes there, but it's also an outdoor centre, so we're doing hill walking, mountain biking, river-based stuff. So all the outdoor stuff. I was an outdoor instructor for a long time before I did this, so it's the outdoors is a great thing to get kids into. So that's the whole idea behind that. It's just more adventures.
So, boys, how tight are you outside of the Heads Up? So, when outside or getting together at the centre and doing the racing, are you still in touch? You still meet up outside of it? Obviously, COVID dependent.
It's a little harder due to COVID, but we're all in a Snapchat group chat. And we're all constantly just in that. I mean, I don't say the boys are nothing like they're the team. We also obviously you first go to the team. They start off as the boys of the team, but within the first week, you're all friends. You're all classing each other as basically family. Like any of these boys could literally run up to me in the street, and it would not be weird at all. Like we'd run up and probably wouldn't say hi to each other. We'd probably be pushing each other and tripping each other up. We're that good mates.
Brilliant. So you kept each other going during these bonkers times that we've been living in. It's so important, isn't it, to have that support?
Yeah, well, we're definitely a supportful group. I mean, any one of us has a problem, everyone will turn around and be like, "Oh, so how are we helping you out? This, and that." Like, no one leaves anyone to be left on their own to deal with the problem, which I think is a really good part of the team, and it builds on the social aspect of it. It's like when we're sitting there, like when we were able to do the Friday nights, when we were all sitting there having a takeaway at the start, it was like we're all just sitting there having a meal. Like sometimes Like a lot of people don't have that. Is just like sitting, just enjoying a meal, and all just like, you know what I mean, just being happy, just getting a bit of nice food in you, and just having no pressure on you. But like, we're definitely a close group because of it.
Brilliant, great. Some great shots here, Ian. When was this?
That was last year. We visited the iMotocross place. So it was just must have been last winter, I think it was.
But yeah, it was the Christmas trip.
That's what it was. The Christmas trip.
And Ian, how do you get your funding for these projects? How do you fundraise? So if people wanted to know more on how they could help you, support you in growing and supporting the boys, where do you get your funding from, and how does that work?
We've no actual funding, so I just raise the money however I can. We're lucky, we've got some lottery funding for the outdoor centre, but that's the first time we've had any funding at all. Other than that, it's just I'll deliver projects for local councils and local schools and things like that. So Hedzup will charge for us to deliver these projects, and that's how we have the money to get kids over the Isle of Man or Ireland and buy bits for bikes or whatever it is we're going to do. So we were really lucky. We needed a minibus, and we did a fund me page, GoFundMe thing. And we done really well. The Isle of Man Steam Packet Company, they help us out a lot, and they sold us a minibus pretty much at half price. And because we were really lucky with the GoFundMe page, that we managed to get a new minibus. So there's a huge amount of people out there that help us. We've got Elias Campbell of 56 North magazine. It's a motorbike magazine. He's brilliant. He's stepped in. He's done an awful lot for us. You can see with Callum's hat, and there's a hat there in the background of it. Elias is great. You've got people like Scott Creary, another lad who's stepped up and helped us so much. But there's a lot of people help us. And a lot of people, the big thing is the biking community is the main thing. Everybody just gets behind you, what you're doing, and people tend to love what we're doing and really enjoy seeing the lads. And the lads I'm dead proud of them, because they do us absolutely do us proud every time we are any place. And the strangest things will happen. I remember Finlay will maybe be embarrassed by this one, but a few years ago we were at Tandragee, and there was a woman collapsed, and it was Finlay and Cameron Lowe and other of the lads from our team at that time. They ran over and helped this woman. Everybody else was turning the opposite direction, because it's a bit scary when things like that happen. But they helped this woman and organised getting an ambulance and getting help and things like that. And that's things like that. It's just when you see boys confident enough to do things like that, then you know something's right.
Fantastic. Well, wow, what an impact. So if anybody wanted to support you and donate, Ian, can they do that? Have you got anything set up for them to do that? Should they just send you a message via what?
They can message me on Facebook, or message the Facebook page on Facebook. That's generally the way we do it. We're in the middle of getting a new website done, because our website is rubbish. But we've got a new one. We've got a new domain name. Elias is helping us do that. So yeah, if anybody would like to help us, we would love to get help. We really need help, and just get in touch.
Great, brilliant. So boys, listen, you've been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really, really important that we shine a light on your incredible team and your community. So thank you for joining me. Liam, you've been great. John, Finlay, thank you so much. Callum, really appreciate your time. Good luck with the racing. And we're going to say goodbye to you boys and leave Ian on while we chat about your book, Ian. Thank you, boys. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, hey, Ian. So, this book then, so you've got two incredible stories I just want to share a little bit of, right? So you gave a copy of your book that you've already written, and you are writing one as well at the minute. But the book that has been released is on your trip to Romania, right? Yeah. With the great Jim Hunter. Actually, there was 3 of you, weren't there? And you went there, you drove a van, all in honor of Joey Dunlop's little ritual that he used to do, the little pilgrimage to Romania to donate to the orphanages. And it was also in aid of, was it to honor Billy Redmayne as well? Is that right?
Yeah, it was. It was inspired. I think the wording was, it was inspired by Joey Dunlop and what Joey used to do, and it was in memory of Billy Redmayne, and not just Billy Redmayne, but all the road racers that we've lost. And it's been a pretty bad few years, and we have lost quite a few, but then it's road racing, and unfortunately, it happens. And that's the sad side of road racing. I remember when the first time we went to Isle of Man with the group, we were at the prize giving, and there was an incredibly talented young Irish lad called Wayne Hamilton, won the newcomers race, and then sadly lost his life in the junior race later on that week. I think that was on the Monday, and it was awful. And we went to the presentation, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house when Wayne's trophy was getting presented to his family, because he was no longer with us. And after we got back, somebody said to me, "Do you think it was right taking the boys to that and having them see that side of it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, because if you're going to see the good side, you've got to understand the not so good side." So that trip was inspired by Joey, but in memory of Billy and all the riders that we lost. And the Billy Redmayne, I didn't know him. I knew him at pass in the paddock. That was it. His parents since then have become really good friends with his family since then. The Billy Redmayne Memorial Fund have done a lot to help Hedzup out, because they set up a memorial fund after that. We donated money to that through the Romanian trip, and they've supported us several times, and it's brilliant. But that's the road racing community for you. The road racing community are just, it's like a big family, and it's something that once you're involved in it, you'll always be involved in it. So that was. It came about because I got given a load of toys. I had a charity shop to raise money for Hedzup for a week. So there was a charity shop in the village where I live, and you could get it for a week to raise money for whatever charity. So I got it for a week to raise money for Hedzup, and I got given a huge amount of toys by the girls in Dundee at the Discover Work Centres, who would do a lot of stuff for. We work with a lot of kids there through doing our construction course, and the girls there had donated all these toys to us, and we couldn't sell them in the shop, so nobody bought them. So I decided, right, what we're going to do. I thought, right, I know, I'll box them up and send them to the orphanage where Joey Dunlop used to be going when he used to fill up his van and head to the orphanages. But the orphanages don't exist as such anymore. So I struggled to find out what I was going to do with them. And I just happened to be at the TT and mentioned it to Jim Hunter, and I said that I thought about boxing them up and posting them off, and Jim, obviously that started him thinking, because he said, meet you in the beer tent in a couple of days. I've got an idea. So I met up with Jim in the beer tent, and that was where the plan came. And there's a little post-it note someplace with a 0 at this side and a 2,000 at this side, well, line, and that's the 2,000 miles to Romania. And Jim had decided, right, why don't we just get a van, fill all this stuff up, and we'll drive there. So the whole idea came from Jim. I started the ball rolling with the fact I had all this stuff that I didn't know what to do with, and Jim just said, let's drive to Romania. And it's like, okay, let's do it. And then we end up getting Ronnie Russell, who is another former TT rider, came in as the third man, and since then we become the team of three, and off we headed. We didn't really have much more of a plan other than the one that came up in the beer tent of, it's 2,000 miles, let's go. We were lucky enough to get a van donated by Ocean Ford that gave us a van for that trip. And I met the boys. I met Jim and Ronnie at the ferry. They got off the ferry from Heysham. I'd driven down from Edzell, and we just started out there, drove from there. Didn't have a map, but we just drove all the way.
So what was, it's quite a challenge to take on 2,000 miles. What was the biggest challenge for you all, do you think? It was quite a mission to take on, but...
I would have said organising it, but then we didn't actually organise anything. So it's a good question. Just finding where we were going to go and getting a van was the biggest hurdle. Because persuading somebody to give you a van when you're going to drive all those miles, it's quite an ask. And we were really lucky. Both times we've made trips that people have stepped up to the plate. The first year was Ocean Ford, the next year it was Mulcreasts. So yeah, I think that would possibly been that was the bit that nearly unstuck us both times, was getting a vehicle that was going to be good enough to go.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It just, you're just consistently like impacting people's lives in such an incredible way, Ian. So, and you still get time to go racing yourself. You still get time to get that fix, which is really important as well.
Yeah,
so,
I've loved racing for 30 years. So once it's in you, you don't get rid of it. I retired for about 8 years, and I vowed I was never going to go back, but I did. But yeah, it's something that it's a bit special. It doesn't get the support it deserves. It doesn't get the TV coverage it deserves. It doesn't get anything it deserves. But hey ho, that's because it's not football. Unfortunately, we live in countries where football's the mainstay, and if it's not involved kicking a ball, then you're not going to get anything.
So this is your van, right? This is the van you managed to get your hands on in Romania. This is the goods
that was
that
us unloading the van. Yeah, that was us unloading the van. That was at Romania. That was at Ian and Sue Paxton's house in Romania. They were the people Jim found them by accident when he started searching for somebody that could help us do something in Romania. And we ended up going to their house. They were involved in a gypsy camp. They were helping this camp of gypsies. And that was us when we arrived. We thought we were just going to turn up, park in the middle of the camp and just say, hand stuff out. But then we got pointed out that would cause a riot. So there was something like 111 different families within this camp, and they all had to be seen to be getting the same amount of help. So we just then had to go and make up 111 parcels of stuff. And it didn't matter what the sizes were, and as long as it was roughly the same in each thing, because they would sort that out themselves. They would swap clothes and they would swap stuff with other people in the camp, as long as they were all seen to be getting an equal amount, sort of thing. So yeah, we had quite a job. It took us about 2 days to sort all the stuff out once we got there and bag it up. And that was in one of the buildings, and it was a family, and that was heart-wrenching. I think when you speak to people, you look into their eyes, and you know what's happening with people when you look into their eyes. And those kids their eyes were empty, and it was actually heartbreaking going into that building and meeting those kids. What you don't see is those blankets are covering the windows because there's no actual glass in windows. There's broken panes, and that's it. The houses were made. They'd made the houses themselves out of whatever building materials they could find lying about. Basically, some of the houses were built more of packing crates than anything else, and it was just. It just doesn't. It also doesn't come across how dull that room actually was. The camera is definitely brightened up. It was a sad moment. It was a moment that I'll certainly never forget. That was outside one of the buildings. That lets you see what the situation that people are living in that camp. And I would love to be able to say that it's the only place in Romania where people are living like that, but it's not. There is a lot of poverty in Romania, and that's how we ended up going there.
So it's all happened because of this man, right? You guys getting together and organising it. So how did you meet Jim Hunter?
I met Jim the first time when I was a newcomer at the Manx Grand Prix. Jim was one of the first people I met because he was obviously Jim's travelling marshal, but he was also so heavily involved with getting newcomers over to the Manx. So I think the first lap I ever done around the TT course was with Jim in a minibus. But a nicer guy you couldn't meet, and Ronnie's the same. Ronnie has a massive background in the TT. His career was cut short in 1978. He had a really bad accident, but he was one of the top boys. I remember us in the van, we were speaking about lap times, things like that. The lap times that Ronnie was doing in the late 70s on crap tyres with hardly any power, and just phenomenal. So yeah, hats off to Ronnie for that. Two great guys, you couldn't imagine two better people we stuck in a van with for weeks.
Brilliant. So remember, guys, this is an interactive show, so fire your questions to Ian. Please feel free to comment. If you're watching it back on the replay, still comment, share it with your friends who you feel might enjoy the show. And we do have another guest, I think, that's going to be joining us in the studio this evening. Might have a question or two for you. I believe he's joining us. Mr. Jim Hunter.
Hi, Hailey. Hi, Ian.
How are you?
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, it's great to see you. It's really interesting to listen to your story about Hedzup and what you're up to, and what a super thing that is. And from my own personal experience, it's such a fantastic job you do for those guys, and I'm sure that we should all really do our best to support you in that.
It's because of people like you that it does keep existing, and that's what's important.
Yeah, so it's really been involved in a couple of great trips then with Mr. Pert. So you went to Romania, we were just discussing then, but also to Syria, right? So you guys, he's writing a second book now on your trip to Syria. What the hell? Amazing. So it's the same kind of trip, is that right?
Yeah. Also came about because of it was Jim's idea to go there as well. When we got back from that one, we were sort of like, well, what do you do next? And part of me was thinking I wanted to go back to Romania because I didn't really know anything else. And then it was Jim that said, well, if Joey Dunlop was still around, where would he be going? And it was Jim and Ronnie said, well, possibly go to Syria. And you're like, really? So that's one of my favourite pictures. Love that picture.
That's a great picture. Yeah. That's in the camp, which was about 20 minutes. That's the refugee camp, which was about 20 minutes away from the Syrian border. And it's so many memories of that. We were only there for a couple of hours, but I think about it all the time.
That's an incredible shot.
Yeah, incredible. I think as Ian said, we're all huge fans of Joey Dunlop. And then you sort of try and backtrack and work out, why did Joey choose to go to Romania in the first place? And I'm sure it was just because that when you turn the news on, the news that was being reported at the time was from Romania, and he must have felt a lot of compassion for all those people, particularly the children in the underprivileged children, and he wanted to go out and do something to support them. So I'm sure if Joey was doing his trips now, he probably wouldn't go to Romania because it sort of dropped out of the news because they're pretty much not completely sorted out, but they're in a much better position than they were. But back in 2017, 2018, and it was the Syrian refugees that were the sort of, the people that we thought we could really do something to help out. So that's, it was quite a tall order, really. To drive from the Isle of Man all the way out there with not having any definite contacts, you're obviously putting yourself in quite a dangerous position just because of where you are. And we had some real fantastic moments, but it was such a great trip and so many fantastic memories. But the people we met were just the people we met in the refugee camps were just really everyday folk, just like us. And I think I can only talk from my own personal experience. I think the refugees get quite a lot of bad press, but these were people who were living in places like Aleppo, and they'd gone off to work in the morning, and they'd come home and their houses had been bombed, and quite literally just a pile of rubble that was left. So you're left with two choices: you're going to stay there, or you're going to get out. And these people got out with their families, and they'd been living in these tents for 3 or 4 years, something like this. But they weren't full of. They weren't pessimistic people. They were people that were very proud people. And the message that I sort of picked up from them is that all they really wanted to do was just go home and try and pick up their lives from where they were at before their civil war started. That was my take on it.
Look at those kids; they're adorable.
Yeah, super.
That was the big difference with the big difference between the kids that we saw when we were in the Syrian camp compared to the kids that we saw when we were in the Romanian camp. The Romanian kids, they had no hope. There was nothing in their eyes. There was no hope. Whereas the Syrian kids, because they found out that Jim was a teacher, we got taken to the class set up, and there was about 20 odd desks set up in this classroom. These kids were getting 5 hours of lessons every day.
Yeah.
So these kids were getting education, and that was the big difference. These kids had hope, and you could see that in their faces, you could see that in their eyes, and that was quite amazing.
Right. Yeah.
And I was standing in the classroom, and there was a bunch of kids came running in, and they'd obviously been taught how to say "I love you," and they came running in shouting "I love you," and my eyes were streaming. It must have been done.
Yeah. But we got a fantastic response from the motorcycling community in general. You know, we got, as Ian said, we set up a crowdfunding page or just giving page, and that was really, really well supported. And we were able to make a donation to several different groups of people as a result of the generosity of people, not only in donating things for us to use, giving us a van to use, the steam packet company for the boat fares and everything else, but it's just so reassuring to think that you're part of something like that where people can be so generous.
Brilliant. So you've got 2 big adventures under your belt, boys. Ian, you're still racing. Mr. Hunter, are you still teaching?
Yeah, I was just actually marking some of my computer science. Waiting for your call, yeah. So I was doing a bit of schoolwork then. Yeah, that's right, yes.
But what's next, guys? Have you got anything that's next? We've got one more great shot to show in a second. But what venture have you got on the cards? Have you discussed anything else?
I think once the borders are reopened, the first thing I'm doing is coming over to the Isle of Man. And we need to get
Scotland to Isle of Man. That's your mission.
We need to get the next trip. We need to start the ball rolling. But we said that we were starting to think about what we're going to do before COVID hit. We were starting to think about where we're going next, and then this all hit. So that's put everything on the back burner until we're able to start thinking about it again. But there will be. Hopefully, I'm not speaking for myself, but there will be another trip.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we sort of thought about going away this October, but as Ian said, COVID just put an end to that. But I'm absolutely sure that we'll be back out there and doing something. Who knows what? But we'll be there. That's my favourite photograph. I absolutely love that photograph. I can just tell you a little bit of background to it. There's obviously the Scottish and the Manx flag, but the lads that are holding the flag, the one guy on the left is dressed in a Marown FC, Marown, that's our local football club, kit. And the guy on the right-hand side is dressed in a St John's Football Club kit. And we did take over a bag of enough kits to kit out 2 teams. The sort of sad thing about the flags is that the guy that we were coordinating with, a guy called Tamar, he didn't want us to take the flags out while we were there because flags are quite contentious things in refugee camps. But because he assumed that the flag that we would have with us would be the Union Jack. He didn't think it would be a Scottish flag and an Isle of Man flag. So what he told us to do was to leave him with the bits and pieces, and then when we'd driven away, when he felt it was safe, then he'd get the flags out and he'd get a photograph for us. But when he took the flags out of the bag and he saw the Scottish flag and the Isle of Man flag, he thought, "Oh no, that would have been a problem if we could have." But there you go. That's another reason to go back, I guess.
Yeah. And, do you know, I always love the meaning of our flag. So the Isle of Man flag, whatever you throw me, whatever way you throw me, I will stand. Have I got that right? The meaning of those 3 legs. It's just fantastic. Yeah. So we've got Mike Kenny on Watch Party saying, love the way you're carrying on Joey's legacy. And do you have a Just Giving page or anything like that they can log on to and donate? So is the best way to just get in touch with you, Ian? As we mentioned before, and donate in that way.
If it's to the for the next, if it's to Hedzup, get in touch with me. If you want to donate to the next trip, then get in touch with Jim.
Get in touch with Jim. Brilliant.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for your interest.
Yeah. Great, gents. Well, listen, Jim, it's always a pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you for asking. Really,
PSOM family. Ian, I've loved sharing your story. Keep doing what you do. And both of you are just having such incredible impacts on not only the motorcycle community, but anyone that really crosses your path. So you really are keeping the spirit of motorsport alive in everyone that meets you. So grateful for you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hailey.
And we look forward to seeing you back on here again soon.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Hailey. Bye.
Thank you for joining us this evening. If you have joined us live, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching back on the replay, please do comment. Feel free to share it around. If you know anybody that will enjoy it, share the love. And make sure, if you're not watching on YouTube, head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe, like, share it with your friends. The more subscribers we get, the more content we can produce for you, and the bigger the channel can get. And why not come on and join us? If you do want to join us on the show and ask any of our guests questions, send us a little message. We can get you set up. It's really easy, really simple, great fun. And we love to invite all of our fans and our followers wherever we can into our studio. So thank you once again. I'm Hailey Coxon. This was Revved Up and Relived live. And this is the Spirit of Motorsport TV.
Bing, 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 bing. Here we go.